Welcome, everybody. This is the Jaden Jeffs podcast. Today, I want to talk about the current state of the FLDS and where they are and what they're doing. And the specific reason I wanted to talk about this is I want people to understand if you're a boy or a girl in the FLDS or just a person, an adult, I want people to understand exactly what that person's situation is and sort of what they're going through. Because at the end of the day, I get so many questions about how is it there? And the truth is there's so many different people in so many different situations that it's hard for me to just say, this is exactly how it is for every person. So as I explain to you how many people there are and who the leader is and all this stuff, I'm going to be doing it through a lens of this is how it would be if you were a boy in this situation or a girl in this situation. This is how I think it is and how it would be. And you guys can comment below if you have any more questions, and I'll try to get to those in the comments. So let's get into it. The first question I'll answer is, who is the leader of the FLDS today? And the answer is not so clear. And let me explain why it's not so clear. Ultimately, Warren Jeffs is the leader, but he's not totally sane. And that's just a fact. Now, Heatheman, my brother, is well known to be the leader and sort of in charge of everything. And then Lyle, people have questioned if Lyle is in a position of authority, and I think he probably is, or at least was, but I don't think he's above Heatheman, if that's what you're wondering. I think Heatheman's there to stay, but the reason why it's complicated, who exactly is the leader, is because while Warren Jeffs is the leader, he's not completely within reality. And so he says to do all these different things, and Heatheman and the other people up there are kind of like, I don't know if we should do that. What does he mean? We're trying to do it. Let me just give you an example of something that I heard about that happened. Warren Jeffs would say, this person is married to this person. For example, Warren Jeffs said, Heatheman is married to these girls. He said that he got lifted from prison and married them and everything, but he never told them to go and be together exactly. But he just did it with some of them. But like my sisters at the same time were also told, you married this guy, but they just didn't go and be with him. They weren't told to. Warren Jeffs said it just like, that's what happened. He said he got lifted from prison and did it. And so the reason why it's complicated is because at the end of the day, Heatheman probably kind of is the leader in some sense, that he's trying to do what Warren Jeffs says, but he's not the leader because he's trying to do what Warren Jeffs is saying. But Warren Jeffs isn't within reality, so he can't say exactly what to do because he just doesn't even know. And he's saying crazy things. And so he tells people, oh, this person should do that, and they try to do it, and it just doesn't work out. Like me, we had bought a house, and we were having a hard time paying for it, and a bunch of the people that were helping us pay for it left because Warren Jeffs told them to go and that we were bad, so we were left with the payment. And then a little while later, Dad sends us a message saying, oh, just drop the house that you seem to buy. That's exactly how he said it. He said, leave the house you seem to buy and just go rent a place. So we literally just left that thing and went and rented a place. And some of these directives you can do, but they don't make sense. And that's one of the things I look back and I just think, how did I just do that? How did we just leave that house and just let it go into foreclosure? I could tell that story sometime, but I'm just saying Warren Jeffs might tell somebody, hey, you should go over here and do this. And 3 weeks later, he should, like, hey, you should move to Wisconsin and be living there. Well, a month later, he might say, oh, you should be in North Dakota and living there. And it changes so fast that you cannot do it. And it's not like he's giving you money. He might give some people some money to do a certain thing, but it's not like he's giving you money to do it. Now, I'm sure things have changed a little bit from when I was there and from when I left, but I'm sure a lot of this stuff is still happening. For example, my brothers and I were living in Wyoming, and they would tell us, hey, Dad wants you guys living up in Minnesota, or Dad wants you, and then a couple months would go by and they'd say, Dad wants you guys living in Wisconsin. And we're like, we're staying in Wyoming. I mean, so this is kind of how things are working. And so if you can understand what I'm saying, there's not exactly a leader. Even if you went and asked Heathen, he would say, well, Warren Jeffs is the leader, of course. But also, it's just a reality that a lot of the things Warren Jeffs says to do are not within reality. And so Heathen kind of makes a lot of arbitrary decisions. And once you do that for a certain period of time, then you kind of become the leader, essentially. And look, one thing I'll say about Heathen is I haven't talked to him for several years now, probably 2 or 3 years. And I don't want to say too much about him as of now, because if he does want to come talk to me, then I want to talk to him. And I don't know, we used to have a pretty good relationship. Growing up, he's 5 years older than me. He was kind of my boss / older brother / I don't know. Like Dad would say, hey, help your brother Heathen do this or do that. So I would help him, and we had a pretty good relationship, and we talked about a lot of things together and just got along pretty good, honestly. And so he's my brother, and I'm sure a lot has changed in both of our mindsets as time, certainly mine, as time has gone on. But at the same time, I don't think of Heathen as just this power-hungry type of person. He's not that type of person, you know. He's a little bit more quiet a lot of times, but will definitely say what he thinks at times. I don't know. It's hard for me to think of Heathen outside of just the Heathen I know. And I don't want to let people say, oh, he did this bad thing. And I know he's got wives and everything. At the same time, I also don't want to be delusional that things can't change. So I was thinking, if you were a girl in Short Creek and Heathen comes to you and says, Father wants you to marry me or him or some other guy, and this is what he wants you to do. Because I think we can pretty confidently say this is going on, more or less, where Warren Jeffs says, I don't know exactly how clear everything is. Whether he says they're married and that he married them and then they just get together, or he tells somebody to marry him, I don't know. I know that they were doing some baptisms and other things like that. So it's possible. I just don't know. But my point is, say you're a girl and Heathen comes to you and says, hey, you're supposed to marry me. This is where I start just questioning things a little bit more, because if you're that girl and you want to marry Heathen, I mean, of course, the general people are going to say, oh yeah, but she's brainwashed, which is kind of true. I guess there's a good chance that the girl also wouldn't want to marry him, or just anybody. And there's a good chance they actually would want to. just because of the mindset they're in. But life after, I'm afraid, isn't great. And especially with how Warren Jessup has treated everybody, just you might get married and then the next day he might say, well, you should be gone, and just you're a bad person for whatever reason. So I don't really like that marriages might be getting done. At the same time, if the community wants to continue on, they have to do marriages. But I wish they would be more open. Maybe not to us, but I just don't like the vibe. Everything's so secret, and marriage isn't celebrated as a actual, the community doesn't come together and celebrate a marriage and then that's long term. I mean, it's probably long term, but it's done in secret. It's all quiet. It's not how a community should be. And when I say it shouldn't be so closed off, that's what I mean. The community should be able to rally around and kind of see, okay, these two people are getting married, let's celebrate it. And then those two can live happily ever after, I guess, if they're living polygamy or whatever. But certainly, when I see these girls, and I've heard some stories, and I'm not going to talk about the stories I hear because I don't know how true they are, and time will kind of play all this out. And I would really like the opportunity to know a little bit more before I speak my mind too much. But you guys get what I'm saying. The marriage thing right now is very iffy, and it's extremely secret. And if you go back to like Leroy Johnson's day and grandfather, Ruth and Jeff's day and John Y. Barlow's day, the marriages were maybe not known in the public world, but they definitely weren't hidden in the community like they are now. And everything's so secret. And I don't like that vibe around marriages especially, because let me just tell you one thing. For example, a girl that got married recently in the FLDS, she's pretty young. Her father doesn't know anything about it. Like nothing. He's gone, he's sent away. Her actual mother, didn't even know anything about it. She just got basically scooped up from her family. They didn't really, maybe one of them knew what was going on and they weren't supposed to tell. She basically gets scooped away from her family. So pretty much who knows about it? Helaman and the girl and one of her stepmothers. I mean, not her father, not her mother. And they tell them after, like a year or two goes by, and then they tell their father and mother. And I don't like it. It can happen with any girl. Personally, I wouldn't have done that if I were him, but whatever. I'm just saying, if the father and the mother can't know about it right when it's happening, and they're not able to put a question mark on it, who is? It's fishy and the vibe isn't right. And I don't like it, and you don't like it. I know you don't, because I can tell you don't. Just by looking at you right now, I can tell you don't like it. So I was just thinking, if you're this girl in this situation, what do? You go along. Or you get rebellious and you don't. But it's like you've been raised in this religion and you love a lot of aspects of it. And you can't blame people for that, because they do. And I know how that feels. I did. And I still do love a lot of the aspects of it. So you can't blame somebody when they're having a torn moment within, oh, I got to do this, marriage or whatever it might be. But at the same time, they love their religion and want to do it, but they don't want to take that step. It's iffy. Their father doesn't know about it. Their mother doesn't know about it. It's fishy. I will always shout from the rooftops that if you can't tell your father and mother about something, if the father and mother that are in a good, let's say, good relationships, it's not like she hates her father and mother. Her father and mother just sent away. So if your father and mother can't know about it in the FLDS especially, why? Because they're bad and they're sent away? No, that's so stupid. So you get what I'm saying. It's just, I don't like the whole situation with the marriage stuff right now. Okay, so a little bit more on the leadership. If Helaman wanted to take over, I think he could easily do it, but I absolutely do not think that's the mindset he's in. I don't want to accuse him of doing something like that. I really think Helaman has a good heart. He was raised in the FLDS just like I was, and let's say that I was put in his position. It wouldn't have been a position that I would have wanted to leave. It wouldn't have been painful because it took me a lot of pain to even want to leave. So if you're put in his position, I'm trying to think how much of a different path would have I taken than what he's taken. Well, maybe not that much different. I might have done a lot of the same things he did. I don't know exactly. Maybe I wouldn't have done some of the things. But I'm just hesitant to blame him exactly. Even he wanted to get married, obviously. He was a young man and has been wanting to get married. So if he kind of got the green light, I can see how he did. He went and got the girls and started himself a fam. It's just, everybody has a point of view in this situation. The problem is, after a while, you start getting power and you start feeling like you have control over people. And I guess, more or less, everybody's going to be controlled by somebody, but it can be too extreme for sure. And then that's a bad thing. So, in my opinion, who's the leader? Somewhere between Helaman controlling the present stuff, trying to do what Dad says, but Warren Jeffs is the ultimate leader. That's what I would say. And then, that Lyle and some of the others might be doing stuff. I don't know. Maybe he's in charge of like a certain area. I heard another guy was in charge of another area, and I don't know how true those kind of things are. But just know how kind of the structure of the FLDS generally works. So I think there's a lot of people that don't believe in this Helaman stuff. And they call it that. They said, oh, we're loyal to Warren Jeffs, but we're not part of the Helaman stuff. And those are the kind of people that, to me, that's great. I don't care. But at the same time, you do have to realize if you're part of the Helaman stuff, you're part of the Warren Jeffs stuff. If you're not part of the Helaman stuff, you're not really part of Warren Jeffs stuff. You can't say, oh, I love Warren Jeffs, like a lot of those FLDS people do, but we're not going to do what Helaman says to do. Helaman definitely is trying to do what Warren Jeffs says to do. He really is trying. And so there's probably at least 2,000 people, in my opinion, that feel this way. We're not part of the Helaman stuff, but, well, I would say there's at least 1,000 that say that. We're not part of the Helaman stuff, but we still believe in Warren Jeffs. To me, that's a little bit hypocritical. When I was there, I would hear this from people, and I would be like, that just makes no sense to me. But it also makes sense in another way, because people could feel like Warren Jeffs has lost it a little bit, and they could consider it as a test from God. And they're loyal to Warren Jeffs' former teachings. And they do believe he's a good man and that someday God is going to set everything right. So they're loyal to that. But they're not going to go along with all the weirdness that's happening right now. I think it's more a way for people to stay in but not leave. It's a way for people to not say, oh, we were wrong this whole time, and just have a total identity dump. But at the same time, they can justify themselves in not doing the crazy things or going along with the current logic there is in the FLDS right now. I think that's why people do that, but they don't understand that they're kind of lying to themselves. They think that they're loyal to Warren Jeffs, but yet they won't do what Hedeman or what Warren Jeffs says to do, and Hedeman passes it on. For example, when we were in Wyoming, we wouldn't go to Wisconsin, and it was that same thing. We were like, we think things are messed up right now. And for me, the whole time I was kind of like, I'm leaving anyway. But for some of the others that were right there, they were really sincere about, this is messed up right now and we're not going to do it, but what used to be kind of makes more sense and we're going to be loyal to that. I don't know. So that's kind of the leadership situation. Let's talk about how many FLDS there are and where they live. I'm just guessing, and don't take my numbers for exact. I didn't go count everybody up. I didn't call him and ask him how many people are paying tithing. My guess is that there's 1,500 truly faithful people. There could easily be 2,000, but I think there's 1,500 for sure that are paying their tithing. And there could be more too. There could definitely be more, but this is my guess. My assumption is that 6,000 to 7,000 people have left from 2012 to now. I would say it's closer to 7,000, but I put 6 just to be conservative. And the reason why is there is a lot of those people that are in between, like, we loved the religion, it's messed up now, we don't really know what to think. Warren Jeffs was a good teacher, is what they think, but things are messed up now. And so they're just living their lives. They don't think they've left, but at the same time, they have left. I mean, for sure, 5,000 people have just hard left. They're never going back. But I think 7,000 people have hard left. So if we have 7,000 people that have really left and they're not going back, then I think we have about 3,000 people that are really hardcore devoted to the religion, but they're not doing the Hedeman stuff, essentially. I think 1,500 people are probably hearing from Hedeman, going along, doing the things that Hedeman... There's probably more than that hearing from him and getting the messages, but faithful tithing payers... Again, these are all my assumptions. I do not know. The way I made the guess is I know that about 7,000 people have left. And from all the people that I've talked to, I hear a lot of different people saying, we're not paying our tithing because we have these questions. And we're going to pay our tithing now because we feel like it's right, but we're still, I don't know, things just aren't making sense for us. So just from all the different people that I talked to, I took a sample and said, okay, there's 5,000 people. Well, there's 5,000 to 6,000 people that are No, there are 5,000 people that are definitely could and would go back if things made enough sense. Maybe 6,000. And so I took that number and I said, how many of those people are really faithful and they're paying their tithing and whatnot? And I just guesstimated 1,500. One of the interesting things about people that were on the edge, and then everything starts to get iffy. And for some reason, something happens and they get some encouragement. Some of the more iffy people will actually go over and start being some of the more loyal people. Because people like to be different and they like to stand for a cause. And before, all the FLDS people were loyal and they were kind of maybe barely on the outside, and now they're going in a little bit more. I think this is probably happening with a few people. Not a ton, but a few. And then you have a lot of the more loyal people that were really up close. A lot of those people are starting to leave or have left because they were so close and it messed up their mind to such an extent that they're like, this makes no sense. And then you have those people that are in the middle, and those are the 3,000 I'm talking about. They're doing their thing, they're earning money, they stay separate from the world, but slowly, as they haven't been really connected with the group, they've started to loosen up and do more and more things. And to me, these kind of people were always very confusing to talk to, because I would say, are you loyal? Are you faithful? Or what's your view? I would start these conversations by saying, I'm feeling a little bit messed up about everything, because I was. How do you see things? And they would say, what we came from was definitely right. And things might have got off the rails or something happened, but we're loyal. And yet, in my mind at the time, loyal was basically everything Warren just said to do throughout the 2000s. So if you were dating somebody, or if you were out at a bar drinking, or you regularly watch television, if you were doing those things, to me, you were an apostate, a full-blown apostate. And there was this one guy in 2017 that said all that stuff that Warren Jeffs did with the financial stuff and doing the lands of refuge made no sense. And at the time, I was super loyal, and I said, that dude is such an apostate. Well, now that person looks like they'll talk to me, but they look at me as sort of, hey dude, you're really gone off the rails here. And now I look at them as more in. And so it's very confusing. And they say things like, you don't want to be saying bad things about your dad. So my point here is that there's people on the edge that are very stable. And he was probably really right about it. But then when I left, I just couldn't see things like that anymore. It was all or nothing at all for me because I was so loyal and I was so in my whole life. Whereas he probably wasn't like me. And he grew up in a more lenient time, and then things got strict, and now he's looking at it and saying it doesn't make sense, but he's not going to leave. Everything, it's good and it's the gospel and we want to be faithful is his view of it. And their parents were probably faithful and they want to be faithful, so. Who funds the FLDS? I think there's probably 10 or 15 small companies that give a fair amount of money. Probably not a ton, but Phase Concrete definitely is the FLDS's biggest funder. Now, if you take those 1,500 people and you say every one of them's making around an average of $60,000 a year doing their jobs, That's quite a bit of tithing for, let's add that up real quick. If you have 1,500 people times 60,000, so that's 90 million that's being made among those people. Now, if they're given 10, now minus 90%, oh, that's 9 million. That's gotta not be right. Okay, 1,500 times 60,000. It's 90 million. 90 million divided by, or what's 10% of 90 million is 10 million, or 9 million. So if 1,500 people were actually making, I think what I did is I divided it in half. So if you have 9 million and you divide it in, because I think half of those people are probably making 60,000. The other half might not be making money, or just estimated that 700 people were actually paying paying a true. Some people are probably given a little bit, but it's probably not a lot. So originally I had estimated that the FLDS were getting around 3 to 5 million a year. It might be a little bit higher than that. I know that Phase Concrete sometimes will give, if there's a specific need, Helaman and Paul Bigley might talk and they say, oh, we're trying to do this, or Warren Jeffs wants us to do this. Can you help a little bit more? Well, maybe he gives 100,000 that month. Maybe the next month he gives 300,000. And then the following month he just gives 30,000. More like just the tithing, basically. So Phase Concrete could be given 100, 200,000 a month, or 30,000 a month, just depending on probably their conversations and what they feel like their needs are. Obviously, money goes out the window a lot, or pretty fast when you have that much of it, but there is a lot of people to take care of, and that's why I was saying I don't think it's that high. Could it be 10 million a year? It could easily be 10 million a year. Is it more likely that it's 5 million a year? I think so, because they're probably helping a lot of people. And Warren Jeffs is always saying, do this, do that, do that. And everybody's having a hard time. So the chance that they're actually pulling in 10 mil a year is probably low. I think 5 mil maybe, could even be less. So, without asking and having these numbers, I'm just guessing. And I'm sure the boys will watch this and laugh about it, which is good. I think there's probably 10 or 15 businesses that are doing okay. They're not big like Phase Concrete. Phase Concrete has 300 employees. They do multi-million-dollar jobs. They gross probably 50 to 80. When I was there, they were doing 50 million a year. They're probably doing 80 or more million a year, maybe even 100 million a year in revenue. So they're making, if they were making a profit of 10%, they would make 5 to 6 to 7 million per year extra, and they're probably doing better than that. But so they probably have at least a profit of 10 million a year. So to give 100,000 or 200,000 a month as an FLDS company shouldn't be that big of a deal. And one of the things about Phase Concrete is, Warren Jeffs has told a lot of people, go work for an FLDS company like Phase Concrete. And so in return, Phase Concrete, why wouldn't they give money back? That's very valuable to have really good workers from the FLDS being told to go work for an FLDS company, and you agree on somewhat of a fair wage, but they could definitely be getting higher. So they're getting 25 or something an hour, but they're never going to leave. That's the thing. Unless they leave the FLDS, they're never going to leave. So it makes sense that Phase would give money to the FLDS, and the FLDS or Warren Jeffs would tell, and I don't think these people are actually behind the walls saying, "Oh, I'll tell all these people to work for you, and in return you give us," that's definitely not going on. It's just sort of how it works. The owner of Phase Concrete was pretty loyal last I knew, and he was getting in with Heatherman, and that's fine by me. I don't care. I'm just glad I'm not working for Phase Concrete anymore. That would just be so lame. I don't know. The time I was working for Phase Concrete was just bad, and when my dad told me don't go work for an FLDS company, part of me was just really glad. I did not like working for the FLDS companies at all. I'm trying to think of what other questions people might have. Oh, I want to talk about how it is for the boys for a minute. Let's say that you're a boy living in Cedar and you still are trying to be faithful. Well, you're probably going to be sending in your tithing. You're probably going to be working for somebody, an FLDS company, and if you're not really sort of in, like if Heatherman doesn't know you, or if Warren Jeffs doesn't somehow know you, then you're not really going to hear much. And this is why so many of the young men have left. They're not going to hear a lot. And this probably is how it is for some girls too. They're just in the Cedar area, and things, they went and got a job because their family was low on money, and they just got left without anybody telling them what to do. They get a job, they work for a while, now they start getting messages again, and they're a little bit confused, and maybe they're encouraged for a little bit, but then the messages stop and they start again. They don't really make sense to them. Sometimes they're told to do this, they're told they can't do this, they're told they can go fishing and eat ice cream, and then they're told to not do these other things, and then they're told to not go fishing and do, it's going to be very confusing for them, and there's going to be a lot of things with what Warren Jeffs says that just don't make sense logically, spiritually, or anything right now. And so these guys are like, well, should we leave? Should we stay? Oh, but we want to stay. We're trying to do good. They get a little bit of encouragement. That'll keep them going for another year. It absolutely will. A little bit of encouragement will keep you going for another year. And then a whole bunch of pain is okay. Just as long as you have a little bit more encouragement, keep you going for another year. Until it happens enough that you decide, this is not going to work for me. Now, let's say you're a boy that Warren Jeffs decides is good. So he sends a message telling Heatherman, or just the scribes or whoever, this boy is good and he's here doing this. Well, they're going to go visit him, and they're going to say, hey, Father just said to come see how you're doing, and you should probably move to Wisconsin or Iowa or wherever, I don't know. Or they tell him to just keep doing what he's doing, I don't know. But I'm just saying, that's, for somebody like that, that's going to be really encouraging. But there's a good chance that same person is also going to get sent away somewhere in there. So they're going to get shipped off and off doing whatever by themselves for a few years, not hearing anything, just doing the best they can, trying to be good enough. And then they get a message after a few years. They get a message, oh yeah, you're supposed to come over here and do this. All that 3 years paid off. It's like, whew, thank you. I know the feeling. You go a year or two, you're working, you're doing the best you can, you're ignoring all the temptations, you gave in to some of them, you repented, you kept writing your letters. It's been 2 years, been 3 years, 4 years. A message comes. Heatherman calls you, Father wants you to do this. Whew. so grateful I was loyal. That's exactly how it is. Whew. I'm so grateful I ignored those temptations. You feel so encouraged. Light just shocks through your body and you're so happy. I don't think people realize the encouragement that is after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I know some people that have gone 10 years and then got a message and they were loyal those 10 years. They didn't do anything wrong. They ignored the temptations. They prayed. 10 years later, they get a call. Imagine you're loyal to this religion against every part of logic that demands you do something different. You leave your family. Some of them leave while you're gone. Some of your boys leave the work. Some of your wives leave. You're out doing the best you can. You do not talk to them because you weren't supposed to. You get a call. Yeah. Russell Johnson was kind of that way. He was doing the meetings in Cedar. He didn't think he was sent away forever, but it was read to the people that he was sent away forever. But he was sent away and he got a job and he just worked and he didn't get on the internet. He bought himself a little house. Didn't know when he was going to hear anything. 2012 to 2017, he didn't talk to anybody really. Nobody really had his number. Nothing. He just went to work, went to bed, prayed, yearned. One day, he gets a call, and he's over here to do meetings. He comes over and starts reading the meetings for Warren and Jeffs in 2017. And a lot of people that have even left now and haven't know this. But I actually talked to Russell about this. And I don't know if he would want me saying this, but I mean, who cares at this point? I care about everybody, really. But I don't think this is a big deal to talk about. I talked to him about this, and I asked him, will you tell me about your experience? And he told me a lot of things, and there was a lot of times he almost died. He was so deeply devoted, and he would fast for days and days on end. And sometimes he would almost die. And he just yearned to be back a part of the work. And then I think he got into kind of a more stable mental place and situation. And he was working a welding job for $12 an hour. His whole focus was just on being worthy to go back. I don't think people recognize the feelings that some of these things bring. The absolute devotion that some people have. It's, in some sense, it's almost a little bit special. In another sense, it's just crazy. In another sense, if you want to feel really, really heightened emotions, that's a good way to do it. But you have to truly believe. If you're going to go through something like that, you have to truly, truly believe. Some of the darkest times that people go through is right after they're sent away, some people are sent away forever, or they just get sent away. They're sent away from their families. Don't talk to your family. Don't talk to your wives. Don't talk to your children. Don't talk to anybody. Go over and do this. When you're supposed to come back, you'll know. You'll get a call. They go, and the first week there's a lot of changes. reality's kind of starting to set in, well, get going a month into it. You're not talking to anybody. You don't have friends. People that live around you might come and knock on your door and you say hi, oh, I'm just moving in, and they're like, oh, that's weird. Okay, whatever. But then you get going and you're just quiet and you just work. Well, 2 months set in. Man, I'm telling you, the depression, the feelings, the yearnings, I couldn't describe them to you. I remember this happening with me a little bit, and I even had a couple family I was living with, and just the yearning and the despair you feel sometimes, and the dark places you start going into are just insane. It's something that I don't know how you could experience it just out in the world exactly. I'm sure there's ways where you get put in these really dark situations, but this is such a unique feeling and experience. And the darkness that you can start feeling after 3 and 4 months of being gone is insane. And some people handle it better than others. They're more carefree. They start going out and taking drives, and maybe they'll go fishing, but then there's other people that will absolutely keep the word, and they're yearning to go back with all their hearts. They're yearning to not be destroyed, and they're deeply devoted in every way, and they're listening to a training before they go to work in the morning, and after they get home they're reading and listening to trainings, and I cannot tell you guys how some of these experiences people go through are, but imagine waiting 10 years and getting a call. It's just insane. I don't think very many people last 10 years, but quite a few last 2 or 3 or 4 years. And how they do it is crazy. Now, I want to talk about Uncle Seth for a minute. Warren Jeffs' brother, Seth Jeffs. If you Google his name, articles will come back. And like less than a week ago, an article came out about him up there in Wisconsin. I can't remember the exact news organization it was from, but let me just hurry Google his name and see what it was. But he's had multiple articles written about him over the last 5 years. When I was up there in North Dakota living with him, there was a couple articles written about him. I wasn't living with him, but I would go and help him sometimes. And he really actually helped me learn how to start my business, because I had started and I was not making very good money. And then he came along and said, well, how are you doing this? I called him one day and I said, I heard you were in Minnesota, and I have a little construction business and I'm having a hard time getting along. And he hadn't really been hearing from people, I think, but he was more than happy to drive over and help me out and show me some things. He's a little bit of a programmer. He had this Excel sheet that he had built, pretty nice, and he gave that to me for my bids, and he said, how much are you charging? And I told him, and he's like, that's not near enough. How are you even living? And he said, take your prices up 3 times. And I did, and it worked. And so he really helped me even survive in some sense at that time. But I remember there were some articles written about him at the time, and it looks like the latest one is from St. Cloud Time. Oh no, that's from 2019. This one on Reddit. I saw one in the Reddit chat. So I don't even know where this news company is out of, but it's WQOW.com. Neighbors alarmed by construction tied to polygamous group, FLDS in Dunn County. Look, I'm not going to cover every single thing that happens in the FLDS or anything, but I just think it's funny that news articles keep getting written about Seth Jeffs. It's funny to me because it was happening back then, and then a few have happened in between then, and it's happening now. And it's just because there's FLDS in a lot of places doing the very same thing that he's doing. They buy a piece of land because they don't know what else to do, and they start building up a place. I don't know how many. I mean, of course, there's a ton over here in Utah, but over back east, there's probably at least 200 people doing that. Or, I don't know, probably. Maybe not people that are as famous as Seth Jeffs, but they're doing the same thing. I don't know. So people just wanted to know if they should be concerned about this, and the answer to me is I don't know. I'm not concerned really about it. I appreciate him for helping me with my business at that time, or I don't even know if how I would have learned more. I'd already been doing it for about 8 months at the time I called him, but I wasn't doing very good at all. And even after, it was pretty hard, but I definitely was able to do a lot better with some of the tips and stuff that he gave me. But this says that he bought this property and he's building houses, and has a picture of his place, and I think he's doing everything legally and whatnot. And so they're probably not really going to be able to do anything. I would say he's kind of a little bit controlling of a person, but I say that I don't know. People say, oh, he was named in this lawsuit and that lawsuit, but of course he was. Of course he's going to be named in different lawsuits and whatever. I don't know what happened with the lawsuits, but I think he got his name taken. I don't know if he got his name taken off the lawsuits, but Seth Jeffs is probably most known for getting arrested a few months before Warren Jeffs was arrested, and he had a bunch of letters and money that was being sent to Warren Jeffs, but he wouldn't tell him where Warren Jeffs was. So he's arrested for helping Warren Jeffs escape. And that's what he was most known for. But then he was arrested again when they did the whole food stamp operation. And that's crazy because I don't know if his family was doing it or what. But, I mean, he probably wasn't really that involved. But ultimately, I think he pled guilty or something. But I talked with him about that a little bit and what it was like. And he said he didn't really know what else to do besides plead guilty. And I just figured I would talk about this because so many articles have been written about him buying properties up there in Minnesota and Wisconsin. This one's in Wisconsin, Dunn County, Wisconsin. Anyway, I don't really know. I think that he probably is just building a place for his family. I was really confused about his views on Warren Jeffs, because when we were talking once, he was voicing some doubts about Warren Jeffs, and at the time I was loyal, and I was like, what? And then he was also really bearing his testimony about him, and I was kind of confused. And I remember I was really worried about using the internet, if I should or shouldn't. And I remember asking him, and he said, well, if you're doing business and you got to do it, then do it, but then be done. And that's what he told me. And then a few days later, he said, I definitely don't want you to be encouraging you to do that if your father wouldn't want you to be doing it. And I said, oh, okay. But when I was working with him, he was really disciplined as far as getting up and just getting to work early in the morning. But then he had a kid. I heard he had a kid, and I thought it was bad because Warren Jeffs told the people to not have kids. And then I think Warren Jeffs said, oh, it's fine that he had a kid. And I don't know. That's what I'm saying. It's just so confusing what's fine and what isn't. But then I think he was paying quite a bit of tithing at some point back in the 2022. And I just stopped talking to him and he kind of stopped talking to me because I went over and was helping him to remodel a cabin and went and helped him on a few decks, and he paid me pretty good. I would go over there and he would give me $1,000 for the week that I was helping him. And he taught me quite a bit about business that I didn't know. Taught me how to give quotes to homeowners and taught me how to get more leads. So, I appreciate him for that. As far as his wives and children, I'm not here to judge what they're doing, or maybe he's definitely an FLDS guy. I kind of was confused. I thought he was thinking about leaving, and then he had a kid, and he got his wives to come live with him when Warren just hadn't really told him to. And obviously, I don't care at this point. Good. If you have wives, you might as well be living with them. But whatever. I really don't know. People are really concerned, I think, in the area. And I think the neighbor, when I was there, he had bought a property up. What is that like? He had bought a property like 3 hours north of Minneapolis, up along the lake there. And it was a really nice place. And I went up there with him a couple times, but the neighbors started putting pressure on some of the government officials, and he was building a road in there, and it was going through a little bit of swampland. And I think they came in and found every possible reason they could find him and made him get a bunch of permits. And I think he went through the process and finished the road. And he was going to build some buildings there. I don't know if he ever did, but it was a thing where he probably would have never had to get any of the permits or anything. He was just building a road, and it was something to do with, it was going through a little bit of swampland. It wasn't like a flowing water or anything. It was just what they consider a little bit of swampland. So they were making him get a bunch of permits and put up fence, and it's just this little road into the property. So I'm pretty sure that if it would have just been a normal dude putting in that road, they wouldn't have made him get all that stuff. But because they found out it was him, then they were trying to find a reason to make it harder. They wanted him to leave. And I remember reading the article back then. Anyway, I thought it was ridiculous at the time, and I still think that probably is why he got the fines and stuff. They were probably just looking for a reason to put pressure on him and make him leave. But I think he ended up selling that property, and apparently he bought this one. I guess it's his name or something. It's funny because I don't see articles written about like any of Warren Jeff's other brothers really, or maybe they're better at keeping it quiet. I don't know. It's kind of funny to me that he keeps managing to get articles written about him. Anyway, there's not a lot of FLDS members that are like Seth is. He's very outgoing, but I'm trying to think of how to describe it. I remember when I was riding with him, I would say, screw that. And he would be like, you know what that means, right? And I would be like, what? And he'd be like, screw is a really bad word. And I would think, to me, when I say screw it, it's not a really bad word. And he would say, no, that means essentially fucking or whatever. But yeah, I thought that was funny, and he wanted me to come work with him, and I did not want to because I felt like he would probably be taking most of the money and I would just be working. And working for myself was pretty hard, especially initially. And it's hard to make all the ends meet, so I probably would have been getting paid pretty good, but I did not want to work with him. And I'm glad I didn't, or something would have gone wrong. It would not have worked out for that long. But yeah, whatever floats his boat, I don't care. I just think it's funny that he keeps getting these articles written. So I don't know what other questions you have. Leave them in the comments. I hope that kind of gives people an idea of what FLDS boys and girls are going through. So if you're in North Dakota, well, some of Warren Jeff's family and some other families are definitely up there in North Dakota. And if you're there, you're probably kind of doing what Heathen wants you to do. No doubt about it. Now, if you're down in Cedar, you could be hearing from Heathen or somebody once in a while. You could be getting mailed the revelations that they send out once in a while, or you could be being ignored and on the fringes thinking about leaving. You could be living over in Iowa, doing the best you can, being somebody like Russell was, just trying to survive and feeling insanely depressed, and you haven't talked to your family for 5 years. You could be living down in St. George, just not really caring, doing your business, having some fun, not thinking too much about the FLDS, but you're definitely still part of them. You could be a girl that's caught up in, hey, you're supposed to marry this person. Are you going to? You could be a boy that's really discouraged somewhere, having a super dark moment that just got sent away because he was doing this bad thing. You could be a mother that her children are supposed to go up to North Dakota, and you're just left wondering, is everything okay? I know they're doing what they're supposed to do, but I'm also scared. I'll keep doing the best I can. And then you go for a few years without hearing from them. You could be a father that a lot of his family won't really talk to anymore because they were told that he was a really bad person, and he still wants to do good and he's still loyal, but at the same time he's like, should we come back together and be a family again? Because this just is messed up, and my boys are leaving the FLDS, or they're gone up where I don't know where they are, which a father's probably going to be more fine with. But then half the boys are just leaving, and they think bad of me because was doing the best I can, and I was told not to talk to them, and now they think I'm just deserting them, which he kind of has because he was told to. So there's so many different situations out there that people are just toiling with immense pain. Some people are doing fine. Some people are having the most depressed, awful, horrible days of their lives. Some people are getting those calls after 4 or 5 years. Come back. Hey, you're supposed to go do this. Hey, you're supposed to gather your family and move here. And they're relieved and they're overjoyed. And 2 weeks later, they get a call saying, hey, you're supposed to go back. I mean, that's how it is in the FLDS right now. If people truly want to know how it is, that's how it is. Some people haven't heard a message for years. They have friends down in Cedar City. Some people have moved around 100 times, and they're loyal, and they're not about to quit. Yeah, my heart really does go out to everybody in the situation. And that's what prompted me to make this video. Is I was thinking, what exactly is everybody feeling? And I'm pretty sure that's what it is, because I know exactly how it is. Some people also are arrogant, and they feel like they can do whatever they want, but also they claim to be a part of the FLDS and they don't want to let that go. And so whenever they go around other people, they're like feeling like they're this better person, and yet they'll do anything. They'll date, they'll everything. But when it really comes down to it, they're not ready to let go. And they're proud of being part of the FLDS, but they're not doing anything that's actually a part of it. And those kind of people are very confusing to me. It's like, you left, if you're being honest, but you still think you're a part of it? Like, what? I don't know. Whatever. So, I probably maybe was a little bit that way for a minute, but I don't like that attitude, really. It's like, no, you left. You left. And if they want to say, oh, we're going to maintain these values, and yeah, we left, or we're going to be part of this other community that's not really following or ingest, that's fine with me. I just don't like when people say, oh yeah, we're still part, but yet they'll do anything. I mean, why do I even care? I don't know why I care. It's just funny to me. It kind of bothers me a little bit. But I feel mostly for the people that are really going through the deep depression and not knowing what to do, because I know how that feels, and it's just hard. You're lonely. Thanks, guys, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope you enjoyed this update. I'm going to have more guests on. I just need to start messaging them. And if you see somebody that's in the FLDS that's having a hard time, I think the best thing you can do is probably invite them to do something that would be fun, but wouldn't be bad, essentially. And then just be really modest and respectful, and they'll probably slowly start to open up, especially if they don't have friends. And a lot of people have reached out to me saying, hey, I have this person in this situation. What would you recommend? Or this situation. And a lot of times I just say, you got to let them make the choice. One of the things you can do is really be nice to somebody for a long time. But if you tell somebody the truth and you're not really going to see them, if you're not really going to see somebody again, the best thing to do is try to tell them in a kind way the most truth that you can, because 2 years later they're going to be like, that's true. It takes 2 years for something to sink in. I remember what we considered apostates would say something outrageous, and 2 years later I would be like, you know what, that's probably true. Thanks, guys, for watching. I'll see you next week. Peace out.